It's spinning though. We're live. We're live.
Is live? Okay.
Mhm.
Welcome, everybody. Please rise for the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Please be seated. Kevin, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Burns.
Here.
Miss Angeline.
Here.
Miss Meyer.
Here.
Miss Meister. Mr. Babel.
Here.
Miss Bolton.
Here.
Okay, so we have a quorum. So we have an agenda to follow tonight, like last meeting. I'm just gonna read this. Normally, the village of Cleves reserves the right to discuss and or act on any village business presented during a council meeting that is not listed on the agenda. However, because this is a special council meeting instead of a regular meeting, we're limiting to discussing only topics on this agenda. So the first agenda item tonight is a motion to approve the minutes from August 21st, 2025 special council meeting. I once again want to compliment Penny, making sure she got this done in a timely manner. They were sent out to council this morning by email. If you need a little time, because I know that some of you probably didn't get that, if you would read through and check the minutes for accuracy. And I think she tried to get everything that she needed to get, that would reflect what was discussed at the last special council meeting.
You do know, Chuck, that both of these special meetings could have been adopted at next month.
Oh, I'm aware of that.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, I'm aware of that.
I just didn't want you to put pressure where it's not necessary. but-
Well, I'm trying to make sure our meetings stay as short as they can be. And I figured if we could get that finished, and Penny was a champion in getting it done, my hat is off to her.
That's fine, I just wanted to.
Any questions or comments from members of council? Do I have a motion to approve? So moved. Motion made by Mr. Babel. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Angeline. Any further discussion or questions? If there's no questions, Penny, please call the roll.
Mr. Burns.
Yes.
Miss Angeline.
Yes.
Miss Meyer.
Yes.
Mr. Babel.
Yay.
Miss Bolton.
Okay.
Motion passes 5-0. So I want to talk a little bit, if I could, before I read this proclamation. You should have received, I hope you received, if not, it was in your drive. But the Cleves Three Rivers Kiwanis Club has been operating here in the village of Cleves for 80 years, serving the Three Rivers community and our community. Last Wednesday, there was a meeting there. I attended that meeting at the request of Dennis George. So I would like to, at this point in time, read the proclamation from the village of Cleves. If you pass it, I will present that to them. So the proclamation from the village of Cleves honoring the Cleves Three Rivers Kiwanis Club, 80 years of service to our community. Whereas the village of Cleves proudly acknowledges and celebrates the unwavering dedication and commitment of the Cleves Three Rivers Kiwanis Club community volunteers who have tirelessly worked to improve the world and our community one child at a time for the past 80 years. And whereas these volunteers have significantly contributed to the betterment of our community through various initiatives and events, including the annual bourbon raffle held each February, which serves as a major fundraiser for their projects. Whereas the proceeds from the bourbon raffle and other fundraising efforts have been instrumental in supporting the Cleves Rivers local school district, including the Jacket Games, which promotes sportsmanship and camaraderie among students. And whereas your volunteers, they have extended their support to the Ronald McDonald House, providing comfort and care to families in need during challenging times. And whereas the dedication of their volunteers has been evident in their support of the Taylor High School student scholarships, helping to pave the way for future success of our young scholars. Whereas the annual Pumpkin Chuck event has become a beloved tradition in our community, building joy and excitement to residents for all ages. And whereas your volunteers have further demonstrated their commitment to the well-being of our neighbors by supporting citizens' need through the contributions to Block Ministries, the Tramp Food Pantry, and improving the aesthetics of our village through the support of the Beautification Committee. Now, therefore, I, Chuck Burkholz, Mayor of Village Cleves, and the members of the Cleves Village Council, do hereby proclaim our heartfelt appreciation and recognition of the extraordinary efforts and contributions of the Cleves Three Rivers Kiwanis Club over the past 80 years. Their selfless service has made a lasting impact in our community and continues to serve as an inspiration for future generations. So that is the proclamation, and I have it here. So it's got a stamp. I want to thank Justin for creating a stamp. And so if there are questions about this or comments any member of council wants to make, I would entertain those now before I ask for a motion to approve.
I'll just say, my son Brett actually was sponsored to the Boys State here in Ohio through the Kiwanis. So they actually paid for him to participate in the Ohio Boys State, which is like a history type thing.
Mm-hmm.
And he actually had to go and speak and tell them how it was. So they definitely, I'm a recipient of some of their generosity.
Thank you, Linda. Anybody else want to make a comment? Anybody in the audience want to make a comment? Well, I just want to thank Dennis George, okay, for ensuring the fact that we were represented. And at this point, I would like to ask for a motion to approve.
I'll make that motion.
Motion made by Mrs. Bolton. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Ms. Meyer. Any further discussion? Penny, please call the roll.
Mr. Burns,
Yes.
Miss Angeline,
Yes.
Ms. Meyer,
Yes.
Mr. Babel,
Yeah.
Ms. Bolton.
Yay.
Thank you very much. Motion passes 5-0. Okay, as far as public comments, due to this being a special council meeting, public comments are limited to only the topics on this agenda. The agenda is missing. I apologize. The village solicitor will stop any questions that fall outside the scope of the agenda. The Village of Cleves values community input and encourages participation. While we welcome passionate viewpoints, we ask that all comments remain respectful and free of disruptive behavior. Our goal is to maintain a constructive and professional environment. Thank you for your cooperation. Are there any members of the audience that maybe watched the last meeting that want to comment on any of the ordinances that we did on the first meeting? If you do, I would ask that you establish yourself as you don't have to give your address because we're going live, but if you would establish who you are and that you are a resident of the village, I'd appreciate it. You want to come forward, please? Would you state your name for the record? And Penny, you'll get this into the minutes, please.
Andrew Nixon. I'll be the first to admit, when Cleves police went away the first time, I didn't think it was a big deal. Now that they've been gone, you can see the effect. I mean, we need the police back. So that's all I got. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else want to make a comment?
Go ahead.
You want to come forward, please, and state your name. You are a Cleves resident, correct? Okay.
That doesn't need to be in the minutes.
I believe that it is in the best interest of every resident of the village of Cleves to have a safe and maintained environment. Having a small Cleves Police Department who will work together with the Sheriff's Department is crucial for our village. It will give the village the ability to enforce ordinances that were passed by the Cleves Council, which is imperative to ensure that each and every resident of our village has a safe and maintained community to live in.
You did good.
Thank you.
Did you want to speak from there?
Okay, I wanna say one thing, I was not for to get rid of the police. But I don't have anything against the county. But we have local ordinances that they won't do nothing about. There was a guy shooting in his yard up there, it shut down the estate and everything. Come to find out, there was no record of it even happened. My wife, at midnight one night, there was a fight across the street from my house. And, she called the non-emergency number, which is down here. She waited on the porch for a half hour. Never showed. Then 45 minutes later, they rode by and never even looked. There was no record of it even happened. I'm just saying that what Chuck and Justin's trying to do is put something together that they're able to enforce the ordinances that we have, because the county won't. And that's just the way they, that's come from upstairs. They don't, there's our ordinances mean absolutely nothing else. And I just think that having them there, having the faces that you could walk up and talk to, I knew every police, they've been in my house the whole 9 yards. I've never ever met one of the county police officers. That I'm just saying, I'm for what you're trying to do, and I think it'll be a good deal. I really do. That's my opinion.
Would you state your name for the record?
Lucky he.
Thank you very much.
I
Everybody knows you, Bev.
also would very much like our ordinance. And since the county can't really maybe do that, then we need our ordinance for it. I almost got hit by somebody on a bicycle the other day. And my son said we needed Jack Rennie for back. It's a kid off, kept all the kids off the bicycles off the sidewalk. So, I was on the sidewalk by the way. So we really do need our ordinances enforced, because just have to have somebody have law and know how to enforce it. That's all.
I do have one other thing. The people that like with their grass too high, their buildings are falling down, they don't care, because we have nobody to enforce it. They know that we don't have anybody to do it. The county's not gonna do it. They know that. So what I'm saying is, at least we have somebody that knocks on the door and say, hey, you need to touch the grass. If you don't, in a timely manner, we have a mayor's court again, which is beneficial to the village. And I just think it's a good deal all the way around.
Only thing I'm gonna correct there, because of the mayor's court, is we don't have that. just yet.
Okay, I'm just,
We have a problem.
okay. I'm just saying, I remember when there was mayor's court, and it was a good thing.
Thank you. Yes, you will state your name, please?
My name's Dakota Jennings. I'm a resident of Cleves and actual daughter-in-law. I feel that getting the Cleves Police Department back would be very beneficial. Like others have stated, we have people that have dogs running around without leashes on, terrorizing other people's dogs. We just had a dog that lives down the street from us, or across the street from us, that went and terrorized somebody else's dog. They got in a fight with each other. Nobody's taking care of their animals. They're not taking care of their properties. They're not taking care of their yard. It's kind of a danger to the community, honestly, and they don't care about enforcing those because it doesn't bother them. It's not part of them to worry about. So we do.
Who are you referring to? Doesn't.
The Hamilton County. It's not their ordinances to enforce, so they don't feel that they need to enforce it. I mean, there's plenty, they won't. There's plenty of things that need to be enforced. I mean, we have ordinances, they're just not being enforced, and I feel like having the police department would really help that, because we're suffering as a community because we're not having ordinances followed, and it's affecting people in the community, and they're crying out about it, but nothing's being done. And I feel like that would help our community out and make it what it's supposed to be.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Just to clarify, as far as the Hamilton County Sheriff's Department, they enforce the Ohio revised code.
That's what I'm saying. Our ordinances, it's not their, I know it's not technically their job to enforce it, but I feel like having the police department to be able to enforce those would really help out the community and make it what it's supposed to be, instead of people constantly worrying about something happening to their property or their animals getting harmed because other people's animals are running free and hurting other people's animals. I feel like we need that to be able to enforce those, to make it better community.
And understand too, so, and I know our attorney will talk more, that this is such a small footprint of a police force that this council has considered. I'm not sure we're gonna be able to get to everything, so I don't want to give the
No,
impression.
not everything, just the main things. I feel like, that's what we need.
Yeah, I just don't want to give the impression that that's gonna fix everything.
No, it's not gonna fix everything. I mean, I know that we have still plenty of things that need to be fixed, but it's gonna take time, but it's definitely a right step forward to fixing things that need to be fixed.
Thank you very
Yeah.
much. Anyone else?
Mayor, I did want to make comments, but I also wanted to know, will there be a time to actually ask questions as well as make comments, or do we not have?
Let me consult with our attorney. She wants to know whether or not there's gonna be a time that they can ask questions and have their questions answered. Good reading. Can't do it in the second reading. We can. Are the questions related specifically to?
Absolutely, they are.
If they're specific to the ordinance, then they can ask questions? Yes. All right, very good.
I'm Carrie Shavar, and I've been a resident for over 30 years. And I was against the abolishment of the police force prior, and I am for it, as well as my husband being reinstated in some fashion. I personally can vouch for living on the street I live on. We have major speeding issue. My home or my property's been hit 4 times by people coming around a curve and literally going too fast. We witnessed just over the last year an intoxication situation where a person missed a curve, hit a telephone pole, and walked off from the accident. And just 3 months ago, we saw another person do almost the exact same thing. They missed the pole that they went out on State Road and didn't stop. It's dangerous. If you have children out in your front yard, let's face it, someone could be hit and killed. So this is something that we talked about even in the neighborhood of the speed bump strips, if we can't enforce the speeding, right? I mean, we see Hamilton County come out and actually do some driving through the neighborhoods, but we have never seen anyone stop on our street for speeding. The other thing is the noise situation is pretty out of control till 1, 2, sometimes 3 in the morning, sometimes it starts back up at 5. These are issues that we're hoping as a community those things could be addressed, whether they are, whether they're not. I did check all the ordinances. I didn't really see anything that was a noise ordinance that says after such and such hours, you can't do some of these things. So anyway, these are very important issues. One of the things that I think is very important is the pro and con of having our own marshal versus sheriff. I have called the sheriffs to my home before, to be honest. Never called the police in my life, but I did call them once in the last year. And what I found was they were more willing to be a mediator than they were to actually take what I felt was some sort of action, right? Cite someone, even if that would have been me or my husband. I didn't feel that was why they were there. I felt they were there to respond to the 911 call, and we kind of go, okay, well, this really isn't our domain. We can't really deal with this. Wasn't really sure if the marshal is able to enforce civil and criminal law. That would be my hope. Wasn't sure how that was going to work. Those are some of the questions that I had. Is this an appointed or an elected position? Will the person interview for the job, or will we utilize resources, human resources that we already have on staff? Those were kind of my questions.
I can answer the first question.
Right.
By the Ohio Revised Code. The person who is our marshal, but he is an administrative head. Okay. Justin Havey, he is our village administrator. We're fortunate that he is an experienced police officer. And what he can enforce and what he can't enforce, I'll leave that to Rob and to Justin. Or I don't know if they can do civil or not. That's not in my area.
Most of the civil ordinances include property issues, zoning issues, like that. We have zoning enforcement to issue those. the police department will effectively deal with criminal ordinances, which applies to criminal, and some of the things that seem civil in some places, communities councils have voted those to be criminally codified, so that they become a minor misdemeanor, like a traffic ticket or something like that. That the police department would be more engaged in that side of it. You know, the same things that community police officers do. I mean, yes, you will get people to show up and mediate something that doesn't go the direction of citing somebody or doing any of that. But it will complement what the sheriff's office is doing by the revised code. And when you brought up noise ordinances, so Cleves, a lot of places have noise ordinances. The sheriff's office won't do ordinances, but if you're in the township, you'll see them enforcing noise ordinances. But they're based on resolutions passed by the township they're in through 50517 of the revised code. So it's an avenue for unincorporated areas to have something. But
one thing I'd add is, Shmar, if you look at the code of ordinances, there's a lot of gaps.
Yeah.
It's an ongoing process with our code of ordinances. So the biggest part was to go through the last 20 plus years, gather all of our ordinances and legislation that been passed. We gave it to American Legal Publishing. They went through, gave a draft copy. Rob and I worked nauseam to go through and approve that so it could be published, but also outline where the gaps are. Noise ordinance is one. And so each council meeting, we're placing new ordinances on the agenda to close those gaps, whether that's tall grass or loud noise.
To your point, it is a far cry from where we were. So congratulations to you all, because it is a very onerous task to do this, and it's huge. I mean, anyone who's lived here for a long time knows that to be true. And even in rereading them all today, it's amazing what's happened just in the last 8, 9 months to 12 months. So I applaud you all for taking it all seriously. Honestly, it feels like these moves are something that, as other residents have said, are going to help our safety in our community. So, more power to you. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else want to make any comments?
I would like to say that I would support moving a noise ordinance toward the top of the list for consideration, because I do think it is important and it hits the quality of life of our residents.
Yeah, I'm not gonna go too much into that.
Okay, that's fine.
Anyone else in the audience want to speak? So I want to thank everybody for coming forward today. I know it's not always easy, so it is helpful to our community and to our council, for our council to hear what people have to say. So we're ready to move on now to the second reading, which is ordinance. We didn't give it a number because it is a second reading, but it's 2025 to reestablish the police department as a local law enforcement agency engaged in criminal justice enforcement. And I wouldn't speak about that last time because, quite frankly, I'm not an attorney, and I wasn't primary in sort of writing the original ordinance. But Rob, you and Justin have worked this through, so if you could give an overview why this is important to the village.
okay, so the ordinance to reestablish was already passed by county. The state has approved that. The Attorney General has approved that. But to operate efficiently, safely, and everything else, you have to have access to information that involves security clearance, NCIC, which is National Crime Information Center, leads. You have to have the ability to get information that's confidential, and you have to have clearance to access. So the police department will have to have databases along those lines because you don't know what you're dealing with. So to effectively do it, the language needed to be clarified for the federal players to access their databases, which trickle down to the Regional Crime Information Center, and they're all intertwined. So the language needed to be specific as to the federal guidelines.
And that came directly from where?
That came from the leads operator in the state of Ohio, but giving access and the go-between for NCIC and the FBI.
Any questions anybody in the audience has for our village solicitor? Members of council, any questions you want to ask? Comments you want to make as we're doing our second reading? No comments. We're going to move on to the second ordinance. And we read the first one at the last special meeting. This is ordinance, whatever that number is going to be, 2025, clarifying the responsibility for maintaining grass and weeds within the adjacent right of way. Justin, you want to give an overview of that ordinance?
So this ordinance aims to clarify the responsibility of landowners for right-of-ways that are adjacent to their property. For example, parcels, and it's not limited to, but parcels on East State Road. If you look at Cage's property lines, you'll see that generally speaking, the property line extends to the center median of the road, even though that's a village right-of-way. In some instances, the property line is set back 5 feet, 10 feet or more from the edge of their property line to the roadway. And at this point, there's nobody responsible to maintain that or cut the grass. This ordinance would effectively put the onus on the property owner adjacent to maintain that grass.
Any questions that the audience would have about that ordinance?
Previously, I think you described it as property owners being responsible from the back of the curb to the right of way line, if that's the case, or in any case. On the way down here, I couldn't help but notice on the East State, in the gutter, where the asphalt meets the concrete, in some cases, there's weeds 2 feet high. Is that gonna be the property owner's responsibility as well?
The grass in the roadway. So this is from the edge of the public street, so the curb forward to their yard. They wouldn't be responsible for anything where the curb would meet asphalt. And for East State Road, the Hamilton County engineers maintain that or responsible to. Our village service department addresses it as they can, because the county commissioners or the county engineers don't get to it routinely as they should. So the answer to that is no. The owner will be responsible for the curb, the property line, the grass. We're looking for basically the curb block of the grass, specifically where there's not sidewalks, nothing in the asphalt. That answers your question, Dale.
Yeah, at some point, a property owner who's made to cut grass in the right of way is gonna say, well, who's gonna cut that out in the street? The answer would be,
Then that's fair. If there's weeds growing in the asphalt, is our service departments available? We'll address it, and we'll continue to relay it to the county engineers to see if they'll address it.
Any other questions? Questions from council? There are no questions. We're going to move on to the second reading on the ordinance 2025 adopting the Cleves Code of Ordinances. I'd like to comment on this first. Justin, feel free to add to that. This actually began before Justin was hired as our village administrator. We had a series of ordinances that were listed for years on our website. They were not codified, if you will. They had not been tested against court cases, changes in the law, and quite frankly, for due process to happen, citizens have to know what the law is. I get it all the time. What are our rights? Tell me what our rights are. What can we do? What can't we do? Well, this right here is a 1.5 year process, okay? That's all the ordinances over the last 20 years in a notebook, but it's also going to be a situation where those ordinances will be online and available at your house, as long as you have an internet connection. It'll also be this book will be here at the municipal building. There'll be another one that is located at the water department that citizens, if they want to come in because they don't have internet access, they'll be able to go here. After every adoption of an ordinance, Penny sends those off to Am Legal. Am Legal updates it. It'll be updated immediately online. Once it's passed by council, we'll be getting copies that we can put into the book and update it regularly. That was not being done previously. Now, it may have been done partially years ago, not contesting that, but just like we learned, there's all these gaps. And so we've done the work, the legwork to put it together. And this is the second reading because these actually have to be adopted as is by our village council. And then they become effective. Even though ordinances have been passed, the body as a whole has to be adopted. We spent a little bit under $20,000 over the last 2 years. We split it up, so we only paid half in fiscal year 2024. We have completed payment for the second half. Is there something I missed here, Justin? So please feel free to.
So, I mean, the manual, the code of ordinances that the mayor just shared is a blend between our locally legislated laws and model codes that American Legal Publishing offers. So part of that process, if during the review, if there's an ordinance that we've passed that addresses the same that American Legal did, they select our ordinance over their model ordinance, so long as it passes legal muster. So twofold here. One, they blend it and make a master manual, but they also do a legal and procedural review to make sure that our ordinances that we pass meet legal muster and there's no liabilities there. As long as we're a member of American Legal Publishing, annually they will go through and check these for any new case law that's come about, and they'll make amendments as necessary.
I just want to add one more thing. In the long run, it will be a money saver for the village. Rather than having, as we first started, Rob had to do all the legal research. That's done by the attorneys there at Am Legal. If we have a new ordinance that we want, they will send us model ordinances to consider, rather than him taking the time and we're building up his minutes. That'll be done for us, and then he can review those and make recommendations to our council. Any other questions that anybody has, comments they want to make about that particular process?
I do. I think for those of us that have been here a long time, you might remember an ordinance that the village, I mean, I've been guilty of this. I've insisted we had that ordinance. I remember it. I remember having the ordinance. I remember seeing it. But part of the problem is we followed Ohio Basic Code, and then we had our code of ordinances. And I think what's good about this is that it pulled out ordinances that were no longer followed state and federal law, correct? Because the laws can change. And then you have an ordinance on the books that maybe doesn't follow it, and then you have to get rid of it. So I had binders and binders and binders of ordinances, and it's all been compiled down to one binder. So I would love to start filling in the gaps. But I will say that this is going to help us in the long run, because now we're going to know exactly what ordinances we have. I think by law, we used to have to codify once every 10 years by law. We did it once in the 18 years I was here, and we hired a teacher to come in the summer and do it. We did hire an official organization. She wasn't a lawyer, so I'm sure she didn't compare them. I don't know exactly what it was involved, but we did have them codified once. This is a much better process, and I am thankful that we are doing it.
Just want to say, I'm so excited about it too, because I feel like it just really puts power back in the hands of citizens, because they'll be able to look and know exactly what our ordinances say. And so if you've ever looked at the Ohio Revised Code online and how it's organized, and you can easily find out, you know, this is going to be like that. And so, yeah, I'm excited about this.
This is just a side comment. It also gives us credibility. I think for the longest time, as a village, we lacked a little credibility. It was a little bit like a Wild Wild West show. And people didn't take the village of Cleves very seriously, because when you don't have a government in place and you don't have the rules that govern the people and the government, why would you take that seriously, right? I mean, why people would question the credibility of that. So it's beautiful to see these, and you can go exactly and find, you know, right there and see all of the topics, and you can go exactly to the page you need. It was great. See it. So thanks again.
Thank you very much, everybody. Anybody else have any comments they want to make? That completes the second reading of the Cleves Code of Ordinances. We're now going to move on to ordinance, which is also a second reading regulating open burning. I'll just make a few comments about this to start off with. Minus an ordinance, okay, as far as open burning is concerned. We, over the past at least 4 years, have had to follow Miami Township's unincorporated rules. So when they did the codification, they found out, and I always thought we had an ordinance to govern that, but we don't. So the end result is that we needed to figure that all out, and in so doing, it allows us to exercise authority that Miami Township doesn't have the authority to do, because they have to follow the state fire marshal, and most of the year there's a ban on doing any type of open burning. So if you were doing, for example, your backyard fire pits and that, and it was during the time, Miami Township could have come in here and shut that down. Okay, with this ordinance in place, it's our ordinance. We have the right as a home rule village, which we have not been operating as. We should be operating as a home rule village. We use ordinances that meet the standard of the Ohio Revised Code, and then we have the ability to go beyond that as long as we're not violating law. So this ordinance goes beyond the ORC and provides our citizens what we believe they want to be able to do to enjoy their property. So I will stop there. Justin, you did the vast majority of work on this. Please fill in the gaps that I've missed.
Covered most of it. Just to reiterate some talking points from last time on it, this is in accordance with Ohio EPA standards and the Ohio Fire Code and the Ohio Revised Code. So it maintains compliance with all those entities, and it really just memorializes what we will allow and what we won't allow in the village for open burning. So we'll allow recreational fires as long as that fire doesn't exceed 5 feet in diameter and 3 feet in height. That's the flame. And it allows for the burning of only clean, dry, seasoned wood, natural gas, or equivalent clean fuel. So to that point, we had a question about burning brush in your fireplace, and that would qualify as equivalent clean fuel of seasoned wood, seasoned dry wood. Correct, Rob? It also allows for portable outdoor fireplaces, grills. What we're trying to prevent here is people from burning tires or having bonfires next to their neighbor's house. Fires that could easily spread and become out of control or put off toxic gases that would be a health and safety So we're not looking to stop, your fire pit on an evening like tonight. Hopefully we get more of them, but, you know, to prevent bonfires and noxious gases.
If I can ask the residents to comment, because I think you guys have had some rather large bonfires. You want to comment?
Well, when I was on the fire department for 26 years, we would get calls periodically from neighbors saying they got a bonfire going, and you get there and they're sitting around their campfire with water source and food source. So they were having just a good time, and I tell them ORC said you can have it as long as you have that stipulation. If it gets above 5 foot, because sometimes it can be 20 foot high, then you can't do that. And we have our police officers silent. If they were just piling junk in, you know, burning, like you say, tires and stuff. But 99% of the time it was people out there enjoying a fire behind their home.
And I
So,
think most of our residents would like to be able to do that.
oh, absolutely.
However, I think across the street from you, for a period of years, you had rather huge bonfires that lit up the
Yeah,
whole street.
that wasn't a recreational deal there. They burnt everything and anything. So, I just, it's a good ordinance, and at least it gives you a foothold to say, hey, this is the ordinance. You're violating the ordinance. Look on your computer or go down and read that. You'll see what it said. And most people were very, very polite and everything, and even the ones that we had to put out, because we had to put a bunch of them out because people were burning trash and all that stuff. So it's a very good ordinance.
Thank you, Lucky, I appreciate that. One thing I want to add is there is a permit application process if you're going to exceed those limits. And so there's not many parcels in Cleves that this may apply to, but if you did have a larger plot of land and you wanted to have a summer party and maybe have a larger fire, bonfire type, we're not saying no, never. We're just saying that you'll have to apply for a special permit. It'll go through, the administrative office here, and we'll coordinate with the fire department as long as you can do it safely and it's not going to put a risk on your neighbors or, you know, for the spread out of control. We'll consider it and we can approve it on a case by case basis.
So will there be guidelines as to how many feet away you are from a home or from a, I mean, what is that special permit looking at?
So we won't get involved in how far it has to be away. That would be fire department's discretion. But what we have outlined in here is the application will include the purpose of burn, the location, date and time, type and quantity of materials to be burned, and the description of safety measures and extinguishing equipment on site.
Okay, but the sole reason we're restricting this is for safety. So I just would want to make sure that you said this won't apply to a lot of village residents, and I'm assuming you said that because we don't have yards big enough. So that's what made me assume that you were looking at X amount of feet away from your neighbor or from, you know, woods.
Right. I mean, when it comes to the permit, I mean, it's going to be a case by case basis. If you have an acre of land and you want to have something that exceeds 5 foot by 3 feet, maybe it's 10 foot by 10 feet, more of a traditional bonfire. We're not saying that no, you can never do that. We're just saying our ordinance isn't going to allow for that. If you want to have something outside the threshold we set, you need to, you know, file a permit. You know, we'll check it. We'll coordinate with the fire department. We'll have to schedule a meeting,
Okay.
see when it's going to be, what your purpose for this is, and are you able to extinguish it if you needed to.
Okay, that's fine.
And that's similar to what we dealt with up on Morgan Street, where the resident called me and wanted us to get permission to burn treated lumber. Okay, well, they had plenty of room to do it, but it's in violation of EPA regulations, so we told them no.
Okay. I just was clarifying that.
When they were putting in Aspen Wood, me house, pushing down and gliding. Well, about the third time we got called up there, we told them, we said, hey, you have to have somebody there 24 hours if you're gonna burn that, or you'll be cited. He pushed everything in North Bend and said, no problem. He- And I talked to the North Bend firemen and they hated it because they got all the calls then, but yeah, he suffered all in, North Bend. Go ahead.
Just to clarify, so when you were talking about what you could burn, we're talking about, you said brush or suitable wood in the fire. This does not include things like paper, cardboard, those kind of trash type items. Is that correct?
Anything that would put off a toxic, noxious gas.
This is interesting, yesterday I was speaking with a resident, he has a complaint, a neighbor of his, they were burning the rubber off the wire. And I guess the, fumes drifted over to his house and into the house, and, he seemed to think they were, maybe toxic.
They are.
I'm sure
Absolutely.
He called the township fire department. I guess they spoke with him several times and they weren't gonna do anything. So I guess the point is that this resolution, all this fits together, the ordinances, town marshal, this fire business, they have to mesh together. You need all of them. You can't not have a marshal have the ordinances because they're kind of useless.
And dealing with my past experience in the trade I'm in, when you go to burn wire, a perfect example is it's PVC coated wire. If you take a small, this is through the EPA. If you take a 1 foot piece of 1/2 inch PVC and you put it in a 10-foot room, 10 by 10 room, you open that door, take one breath, you're dead. That is how toxic the insulation on wire is. So it's when you're talking about burning wire, that is very, very serious toxic stuff and can literally kill you in a split second.
Thank you very much. Any other comments?
I'll just say to your point, Ms. Shavar, this is one of those ordinances where we found a gap. We're trying to close the gaps each meeting. So without having 10-hour-long meetings, we're trying to address these gaps. We're trying to, they're all important, but how urgent are they? So,
Right.
Important, urgent metric and get them on here. The more urgent ones sooner.
With the fall
We'll continue to do this.
Or even we've had drought scenarios where, you see some cities, towns, municipalities will put in a drought situation where you can't burn during a period of time. So those were other things we were thinking about too for safety purposes, because sparks fly off and there's a lot of trees and brush around here. You catch someone else's property on fire by accident. Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay, the next one is number 5, and I put on here second reading or passage by suspending of the rules. My recommendation here on this one, because of the significance to the village of Addison, not so much the village of Cleves, is that we will have Justin explain the resolution, how it came about, why it's of significant importance to the village of Addison. And I want to be clear before I turn him loose on this, okay, because it's important that we understand what is or isn't going to happen when NES closes down, okay? And so I'm going to let him explain how the water system works over there and why it's such a concern to Addison, which also is having extreme financial issues. Okay, where they were not able to even execute a grant. That's going to pay for infrastructure improvement from Greater Cincinnati Water. Now, he may not get into that, but I want you to understand, they've got problems over there right now, and they're looking for solutions. Go ahead, Joe.
This is a resolution granting the administrator the authority to execute a contract to supply bulk water to the village of Addison. This all comes about, it's Comes about after many meetings with the Village of Addison, their Public Utilities and Water Board, the Ohio EPA, and RCAP, which is a Rural Community Assistance Partnership. I know Addison's not rural, but RCAP serves community water systems that are under 10,000 consumers. So communication, coordination with all them, they recommended that I submit a grant to the Ohio EPA for regionalization. That regionalization initiative is to take our water main from Consolidated Grain around Java Jackets, if you're familiar with where that is, and Consolidated Grain. Our water main currently ends right in that area. This would extend our water main down US 50 towards daycare and the car wash, where we would tie into Addison's existing system. We would put in a master meter so we could read the flow that goes through, and also put a pressure reducing valve on. Our pressure is around 170 PSI, and Addison's system can only handle around 60 or 70. So that PRV valve will reduce it. There's, ongoing discussions of what it'll look like if we provide bulk water to Addison. There's talk that we would just pump water in through the master meter, and then bill them on a bulk usage rate, like a wholesaler. There's also conversation of maybe we would handle their billing as well, and meter reading. And so time is of the essence here. We were awarded over an $800,000 grant for this regionalization effort back in May, and the planning has to be complete from the engineer no later than October 31st. And so, we're already behind the 8 ball to get that done if it was approved today, but it needs to be done within the next 2 weeks if there's any chance of us having the planning done and get it to EPA, get this project off the ground. So granting me the authority to do this tonight is imperative, so I can negotiate back and forth with Addison and try to find something agreeable by the deadline. To speak to Addison's, the great situation they're in, NEOS is closing. I think everybody's aware of that. Addison's well field, where they pump, is located on NEOS's property. There's 5 wells on NEOS's property. So one of those is abandoned. I don't think for deferred maintenance or doesn't work anymore. And then Addison retains, if you put them in a line, 1's here and 5's here. Addison pulls off of well 4 and 5. NEOS pulls off of well 1 and 2. Now, the EPA believes through their studies that there is a considerable toxic plume under there. And the only thing preventing contamination from seeping into Addison's water system at this point is that NEOS pulls a constant vacuum of water off well 1 and 2, which keeps that plume to the east of Addison's wells. When NEOS ultimately closes and they stop pumping those wells, that plume within 7 days, it's believed, will infiltrate their first well. And within 7 to 30 days, their other well will also become contaminated. That contains PFAS and other chemicals that aren't safe for drinking. So, this grant is contingent on Addison agreeing to us providing bulk water, and also for them to discontinue and shut off their well systems. So this is really this is an effort to ensure that Addison residents have clean drinking water when NEOS ultimately does close.
I got you were being very generous with their pressure. I've never seen much over 40 or 50 taking the same thing. And as when our fire trucks got to Addison, we jumped up to the plug. Their trucks didn't have any more. They didn't have any water because it was really bad. We finally told them, "When we get to the fire, don't need to hook your trucks up. We'll get there and we'll supply the water." But it was 40 to 50, and it was bad.
And you're right. So some of their infrastructure, some of their water mains have been replaced. They can accommodate our pressure, but the older ones, the further you get, Secretary,
Some of them are 4-inch mains.
The 4-inch mains, which aren't even suitable for fire protection,
No way.
and also they're
100 years old.
Plugged in one time?
Huh?
Did we suck a plug down?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, we
Yeah,
suck
they
one
just,
underground, suck right down underground.
Yeah.
Just had a couple questions. Justin, are there any other options for Abston? Number one, is this the only option they have? And number two, not to, sound in any way negative or disrespectful, but will our village have any money-making potential off of this, contracted deal with Abston?
Sure. So your first part is, yes, they do have another alternative with Greater Cincinnati Waterworks.
Alright.
So at this point, it's between Greater Cincinnati Waterworks and the Village of Cleves Waterworks, on who will take that system over indefinitely. At this point, I call this phase one, regionalization. Even if we complete this agree to complete this project and provide them bulk water for a period of time, and ultimately they go with Greater Cincinnati Waterworks long term, it still gives us another interconnection where we don't have it at this point. So, back in, I believe, December, January, of course, the coldest day of the year, we had a massive main break at St. Anne's.
Yeah.
And we were able to limit that. We have a pretty robust system, so we're able to shut off certain valves and bypass. But by having that interconnection to the east, it would allow more residents to not be affected by a water main break, because then we could tap into that system and provide water through that master meter until we've made the repair.
Slight workaround. That's awesome.
So that's the first part. The second part is we don't really know.
Okay.
We don't know until we get in there and we're able to see what the accurate meter readings are and see what the true consumption is.
Just thought it might be a business potential in a way.
Absolutely. So,
Yeah.
I mean, at this point, we're considering the need in the future for additional administrative staff for our billing, especially as we take on online billing efforts, trying to enhance our services. Also, we need to hire an additional water technician at some point so we can perform our own work. If we don't ever do that, we'll continue to rely on contractors, because it takes a crew of people. It takes an equipment operator, it takes somebody in the hole, it takes somebody digging and directing traffic. If we took on Addiston, the thought is that it would generate enough revenue for us to maybe increase our staff, enhance our services for police residents as well.
Wonderful. And then my last question would be, who would do the work if you did end up contracting this? Where does that lie?
So that goes out the bid. So
Okay.
once the job's planned and sent to OEPA and they approve it, then it goes out to bid.
Okay, thank you.
And Justin, if Addison does agree to this, how long will the process take?
I think the funding source is available till the end of next year. But October 31st of this year is the deadline to get the plans in. So if it's agreeable, I'd feel confident saying that construction would take place in spring or summer of.
Will it be done in
26.
time to help Addison?
I believe it would. I believe that we could meet that deadline. And also, as long as there's a light at the end of the tunnel, I do believe INEOS will be a good partner and maintain the vacuum line as well until construction is complete.
Okay, that was the other question. We were just saying, what happens in the interim? And who picks up the tab for that then, since INEOS would be closed down? Are they going to then put the bill for that, or
For shutting down.
for the
Addison.
vacuum, creating that vacuum you were talking about?
Well, so EPA has agreed to provide money to Addison's water district. Should they agree to this bulk water agreement with us and the regionalization, the EPA is prepared to give them money to shut their system down.
Okay,
And so there would be no contamination into our system from their well fields. That would be abandoned.
okay, thank you.
How about our pressure?
I'm
If that
sorry.
bulk water gets turned on, is that gonna affect our pressure at all to have this additional?
No. So everything in that area comes from the Rittenhouse water tower. And so as we pump from the aquifer over on Kilby Road, we ultimately pump into our water tower, and then it's gravity
That's
fed.
No, that's good. I just wanted to make sure that the residents of Cleves' water pressure isn't going to be negatively
At
affected.
this point, on average, we pump around 800,000 to 900,000 gallons daily, and we have the ability to pump in excess of 2 million.
Oh, wow.
And this wouldn't be something that financially would cost us anything, right? To undertake.
No, not at this point.
But it will,
No, this agreement would not, but, looking for a long-term solution, if we were to agree to take their water system on, it would ultimately become part of our district at that point. And at that point, this has nothing to do with that, but it's all an effort for down the road to potentially take their water system on. If we did that, we would then take ownership of their water infrastructure. If they had a water main break or they repair a road, we would put new infrastructure
So we
in.
would get the revenue.
We would
from-
get all revenue from the consumers there.
And they would have resident prices for water.
They would pay an out-of-resident price once that's established. And that would be, that's established in the county water contract, and ultimately, the council would decide, what the water rate will be.
and right now.
Any other questions? If there are no other questions, I would like to ask council if they would make a recommendation to suspend the rules. And if they do that, motion and it passes, then we'll move on to pass the actual resolution. So do I have a motion to suspend the rules?
So moved.
Motion made by Mrs. Bolton. Do I have a second?
A second.
Okay, so we're gonna suspend the rules to allow us to, pass, okay, the resolution. And that number is what number, Justin? What is the number of this resolution?
Your resolution 12, 2025.
Okay, resolution 12, 2025. This is our motion is to read this by title only. Resolution authorizing the village administrator to enter a contract to supply bulk water to the village of Addison. And this motion is only to suspend the rules. So you already
Yeah.
made that motion. Did we get a second or not? Second by Miss Angeline. Penny, please call the roll.
Mr. Burns,
Yes.
Miss Angeline,
Yes.
Ms. Meyer,
Yes.
Mr. Abel,
Yay.
Ms. Bolton.
Yay.
Motion passes 5-0. So at this point, I'm asking for a motion to adopt and pass resolution number 12-2025, a resolution authorizing the village administrator to enter a contract to supply bulk water to the village of Addison. Do I have a motion to approve that resolution?
So moved.
Motion made by Mr. Babel. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Mrs. Bolton. Any further discussion? Penny, please call the roll.
Mr. Burns,
Yes.
Miss Angeline,
Yes.
Ms. Meyer,
Yes.
Mr. Babel,
Yay.
Ms. Bolton.
Yay.
Motion passes, the resolution passes 5-0. Okay, so now at the last council meeting, on the agenda, there was an update about the library branch being built in Cleves. And I neglected to update you on that. If you go by the actual location, you're gonna see a brand new sign. And I'm gonna take a little bit of credit for that brand new sign being there because I was getting hit by residents. Is it gonna happen or isn't it gonna happen? And because it kept saying 2026. Well, here we are in August of 2025, and nothing has happened. So I went over and talked to Carrie Bernard. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to get to her. I communicated with one of her aides, and she said, well, there's a sign down there, and they have an update over on the library, on their webpage. I said, I'm all aware of that. I said, signs don't mean a whole lot. I said, at one point, we had a Walmart that was gonna open in 2008. Big sign down where Three River School is. Never happened. I said, so signs are signs, but that doesn't mean it's happening. I've got people who think that we've lost funding, nothing's happening, they don't see anything. To her credit, she got me in touch with a gentleman by the name of Joe Armstrong. So on August 7th, 2025 at 9:15, he writes, hello, Mayor Burkholz. Carry forward me your email as we wanted to make sure you received the information you requested in a timely manner. thank you for highlighting this and telling us, about the community concerns you're hearing. As of today, the project's design schedule is progressing with a slight delay to the estimated completion date from the end of 2026 to the spring of 2027. This is slightly later than initially anticipated, and we will soon have a new banner with that updated timeframe placed on site. It is there currently. There has been no delay on this project as a result of the latest state operating budget, as this project will be funded with current local funding. Using our standard cadence of community engagement for these facility master plan projects, we will share the design plans with the community this fall. In addition, we will increase the frequency of updates to the project website, which by the way had not been updated since last May. Okay, I check on this pretty frequently, to at least once per month. The updates may not contain too much new information during the planning and design phase of the project, but we want to ensure we're delivering consistent communication to our customers in Cleves and beyond. Of course, Carrie and the wonderful Miami Township branch team will also continue to be a resource, and you're welcome to reach out to me as well if you have any further questions about outreach concerning this project. I appreciate you sharing this feedback in the spirit of partnership and look forward to celebrating this generational moment for the library and the village of Cleves. So hopefully, if people are watching here tonight, that'll answer your questions. This is an important development in the village of Cleves. I will tell you that right after I was elected, if anybody wants to file a public records request, they can go right ahead. Dan Blanton at Miami Township and I went down and had a meeting with the library. We were the ones who made them aware of that property being located there. And I believe we had, at that time, they were talking about locating it down at Three Rivers Campus. They selected this site, which I believe is going to be a good development piece for this village. It's going to provide better lighting and security in that area, and that is all part of our redevelopment district. So I wanted to give this update to you as community members. You can count on the fact it is going to happen, but it's probably not going to be opening until 2027. If there's any questions, I'll be glad to answer. Thank you. The second piece of this, and I had some communication today. This deals with a street committee. So I will be drafting a email letter to our residents who have signed up for our village alerts. That'll more than likely be going out by the end of this week. We know that we need to have a streets committee. We know that. Okay. And today I got questioned on Edgefield Avenue, Drive. I'm sorry. And I would love to tell our residents that we're floating in money and that we can fix the Baja. There's 3 sections that I went out and met, John Knupp and I met with our village engineer. And we wanted her to take a look at, if we just repaired those 3 sections, what would it cost? And so we did that. And I posted that email to the resident who asked. It was on Edgefield, and it was all on social media. I will more than likely also include that in my next This Week in the Village. So those of you out there, if you're not on the list, I would get on the list, because every week every Monday I sort of send out what's happening in the village. And this is an important piece of this. Linda can tell you that she's been a big proponent of a streets committee. By Ohio Revised Code, the village administrator is the street commissioner. He will be chairing that actual meeting. I do not plan on attending those meetings. Okay, I don't feel that that's one more committee meeting that I don't think I need to be on. However, there's 2 issues that we got to take a look at to start off with. One is is there or is there not going to be a gate between the new subdivision, okay, over at in Miami Township. I got complaints, legitimate complaints. Justin and I had met with the developer. We put out cement blocks there as a temporary issue. We'd like to get this thing resolved. So when we put them, they want us to move, and they promised they would put up barriers themselves that would prevent people from driving around. They are driving around exactly as I told them they would. They don't care if they drive through somebody's yard. If they want to go from that subdivision into our subdivision, they are currently doing it.
And that involves
I'm
the
sorry?
building trucks too, right?
Oh, yeah, they were moving them out of the way and they were bringing heavy
And
equipment.
now the big equipment's going
Yeah.
around.
Absolutely. So I spoke with Justin. Ironically, he got communication just about the same time, and they wanted to do, I forget what you said. What did they want to do there?
They'd like us to create a gap in our barricades so golf carts and bicycles and pedestrians.
So,
Golf carts on the road?
Are they licensed?
Well, that's what I.
Are they on the sidewalks? Are they on the road?
they would be on the road.
I've seen a lot of kids on motorized bikes on our roads like recently. Bicycles, motorized bicycles.
At this point, they want the gap there because they placed sod as a punch list item for the developer to pass it off to the HOA. And they're having a hard time growing the grass because of the vehicles exiting the road and going around. And so they want the gap, so I guess to eliminate people from walking or driving or riding in the grass sod they're trying to.
Well, we have a meeting next week, right? Like the
We
first-
are, this
Okay.
was what I'm getting ready to say. So I've asked John Knupp, okay, to serve on that committee with Justin, Stephanie, you're on that committee. I think, Kevin, you may not be on the committee, but you have a presentation I know that you want to prepare because they're going to discuss this particular gate proposal, something that should have been done by the prior council and was not. We need to get other residents on this committee. We already have one that has volunteered to do it. That's Jennifer Heisel. Okay, so she will be part of it, but we need others. And we can take others out of the Coleman subdivision, but that gate is not the only issue we have in this village. We have a street problem in this village, and we have a funding issue of how are we going to do this. We did file for a grant with the state of Ohio to replace Edgefield. We were denied. Why were we denied? Primarily because it's competitive and there were other projects that graded higher, and they said they didn't have the money to give to us. The Village of Cleves used to have a street list. Linda's talked about it repeatedly. We don't have that anymore. So we don't have any dedicated money for streets. Everything has to come out of the general fund if we're gonna do it, or we're gonna have to borrow it. We tried to borrow money. We got rejected on that also. So I would love to tell our residents that we can do this, that we can afford to do it. We can't. And not that we don't want to, although I had one when I was running for office tell me that the council was refusing to repair it. That is absolutely false. We haven't refused to do anything, and neither did the other council. You can't, they're not going to give you the road for free. Okay. You got to be able to give seed money and things like that. We just don't have it. We're exhausting our general fund. There's only so much we can do. So this particular lady, different person entirely, asked me about it. The repair cost is $50,000 for 3 sections, not to do a complete repair, but a sectional repair. And she didn't put this in the email, but she communicated this clearly to me. The minute we do that, we reduce our opportunity for grants, because they will come out, they will take a look at the pavement, they will see the repairs, and the end result is we might have fixed it in the short run, But in the long run, is that a good deal for this village? That'll be another thing that I think this committee is gonna have to address. They're gonna have to talk about Edgefield, and they're gonna have to talk about where we're headed. They're gonna need to make recommendations, sitting alongside the village council. But I wanna be clear, and I will be clear in my message to the residents. In the end, it isn't gonna be the street committee who makes the decision of whether there's a gate. Okay, it isn't gonna be any one section of residents. It'll have to be voted on by this council, and it should have been voted on when the promises were made to New Pine. And it wasn't even discussed with members of council. And I remember one of the first things that Mr. Burns asked me about was, are we ever gonna find out what is going on with this? Because we never had a chance to talk about it. Okay, Jerry Meister said the same thing. Those are the only council members that were on the old council. They should have had that opportunity to talk. Residents should have had the opportunity to give input. Last fall, we had a rather large crowd in here. We promised to do a public hearing. Linda and I talked about that. She agrees. Regardless of what happens in that committee, we need to do a public hearing. So residents have an opportunity, all residents understand if you open that gate up, okay, you got increased traffic. You're probably gonna have more wear and tear on the streets. There's gonna be more repairs than just Edgefield. And everybody's gonna have to understand that. And it'll affect every resident in this village. It's not gonna just affect Coleman Woods. It'll affect every taxpayer in this village. And one of the things I believe we have to do is we gotta stop looking at situations as this neighborhood, that neighborhood, what goes in downtown doesn't affect what goes on further up the road. It affects us all. We are a village. And as a village, it affects every resident, every taxpayer in this village. And we all ought to know what's going on. And I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Yeah, I don't want to drag this out any further, but I want to make sure that the gate that is currently up in Westgate isn't involved in any of the
It is
decisions.
not, according to
that they're
Rob.
kept
Rob
separate.
did the research on it. He
Okay.
said it's separate deal entirely.
Okay, so they can decide, we can decide whatever we want up there, and it doesn't necessarily affect
It
Westgate.
doesn't impact that in any way.
Okay, so if that one's ever brought into question, there'd be another hearing on that one as well.
Rob, I'm gonna defer to you. You're the one who did the research on that gate up there versus the gate over there. There was question as to whether we had to open that up. You indicated, as I remember, that that gate is not even a legitimate road and it isn't designed for that purpose, but I wasn't the one doing the research.
Yeah, you could probably defer to me on that. Rob and I did speak, and so a lot of that research was done by me, and Rob's decision was based on my research. Couple things. First off, that the gate that connects Westgate to Coleman Woods it's not a roadway. It's an access drive.
Yeah, for safety, for fire and police.
Correct. It also abuts the property, and there's some deed language that gives the property owner some control over that. So these are two separate issues. I mean, we're talking about potentially placing a gate on two established adopted roadways versus a gate that blocks people from driving on an access drive. And so that's the main difference here.
Okay, I just want to make sure they're kept separate. That's all I really care about right now, is that they'll never be joined together as a one project type thing.
No, they're two separate issues totally. And there's a lot of reasons. The main one is that could never be adopted as a roadway, the existing gate.
Well, the width of Westgate, I understand from our engineer, was a problem. Westgate isn't as wide as some of the new streets I've told you. But anyway, I'm all in favor of moving on.
Yeah.
Kevin.
Can you just remind me of the schedule? Because
Yeah,
I really hate that the first meeting is 6 o'clock on a
and you
Thursday.
can't make it, that's okay. September 4th, 6 p.m. It's right before the safety. So we'll have 6 p.m., we'll have the streets committee. That will be followed by the safety committee. I don't anticipate we're gonna get through this in a meeting, but I do think there needs to be meetings scheduled so that by October, we are in a position to make a decision as a council after a public hearing, which means probably at one of our council meetings, we're gonna have to designate a significant portion to that discussion. And then this council is gonna have to evaluate that, and they're gonna have to decide. So in my mind, Kevin, that presentation can be given anytime. Okay, I looked at your presentation. It can be given that meeting, or it can be given in multiple meetings, or it can be done one in front of council at a council meeting. It really doesn't matter.
They're looking to make Thursday at 6 the regular, whoever they is at this point. Sounds like it's John and Jenny, but
Yeah, it's the first meeting, sort of like an organizational meeting, will be on September 4th and 6th.
We can make sure that our second meeting, when we do set a date for that, that it's good for your schedule.
it's just, PRCA sports, but you only get one practice a week, so it's kind of rough.
I would suggest just give us a schedule, we'll figure it out. Any other questions on that from residents out in the community? Okay, if there's no questions on that, then I'd like our village solicitor, who's done some extensive research. We have a 4.5 safety mill levy that is going on the ballot. Now, eventually, there will be an announcement. There is a committee, okay, that is going to take over for the village council, that is going to help do what probably should have been done on previous levies over the past 4 years. They'll become an organized PAC, which allows residents, members of council, any interested party who has a vested interest in the well-being of the village, that they can contribute money. And that PAC can do what the village council cannot do. So what Rob is going to do now is tell you the research he has done. He is going to advise us as members of council what we can and cannot do. And I'll just turn it over to him. Go ahead, Rob.
So if you could provide factual information, stay away from being persuasive, explain to people we're gonna get rid of this, or get rid of that if we don't pass the levy, the fear mongering, that kind of stuff. Strictly factual information that can be fact checked, obviously, and nothing, you're not supposed to do anything as a employee while working or elected member of and public entity, but you guys are council members, you're council members, leave your home too. So you just want to steer clear of any persuasive or information that's not totally true in attempts to try to push the levy. I think that the fact, along with the information provided, it's strictly factual, is going to be the best way to go. I spoke to Scott Solomon from North Bend about it. I spoke to the attorneys and the administrator at Orion Township, and I used to be involved in the levies as a police officer at Springfield Township. I had to do anything I did on my own time. So that's the real big thing. Nothing can be funded or financed by the Village of Cleves or anybody's time can be financed by the village. So more or less, if there's any question, don't do it. And that's really the safest. And if there's any question, don't say it. That's
Should we or should we not voice how we feel about the letter?
And there's nothing that says you can. But anytime even the difference between being an employee of the village versus an elected official, employees are off at times, so they can knock on doors, explain things, and be persuasive. Err on the side of caution.
In other words, like a public forum, like Westgate subdivision, we have our own webpage. It would be ill-advised for me to say that I would vote or I would not vote for this levy.
Yeah, I would stay away from something that's.
I just
specific.
want,
Yeah, I would stay away from something that specific. Okay. You can say the good things that the levy can bring, provided those are factual. You can't say, well, we get rid of this if we didn't pass this, or we
Right.
fix your street if we pass it, or we won't fix your street if we don't pass it. I mean, that kind of stuff, anything.
Any other like
I had something happen and it was about levies. And like I said, the guys did away with all our levies. So we had to get levies. Well, then I didn't ever, something given to every resident. I didn't get one. Our group didn't get one. I asked the mayor why we didn't get one. She said, because you live down there and nobody votes.
Who is she?
Jan.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And I said, how can you say that? And she said it right in the council room. And I said, Jan, that made me mad. Yeah, she said, you all don't vote down there anyway. And that's the way it went for a long time. That's why none of the levies got passed, because there wasn't information out on them, for one thing. And another thing is they say stuff like that.
Well, you won't hear that from this group, so.
No, I understand this group. That group back there, that was a whole different story.
I was gone, so I don't remember.
Oh, I know.
any other questions from council members about what you can and cannot do every vote? Let me say one thing that Rob did. You certainly can't be in this room in a meeting. We can make it available to the PAC to meet, but you can't physically be in this room with them. You just can't. So my suggestion to you is, and Rob and I talked a little bit about this, about what we can provide and how can we provide. Okay. Cindy Ozer and I met the other day about creating a fact sheet. Okay. Jerry did a marvelous job. Jerry Meiser, who's not here tonight, did a marvelous job pulling together a fact sheet. The problem is it wasn't sent out until right before the levy. That was really when many people first found out a levy was even on the ballot. We've done plenty of communication that is coming. Okay. And I can tell you that the committee that has been assembled will do a good job of getting the information out. We can provide information. Is there anything else we can do besides just provide information?
Factual information. And I mean, as the elected officials, you want to stay away from stuff that goes further than that. I mean, benefits of can be factual, but they need to be strictly factual.
Would you suggest that we run that past you first?
Yes.
Okay. So go ahead, Dale.
I would think Cindy would probably be a primary source of good info, correct, accurate information. Can she be approached for information, for factual information?
Yeah, I mean, she could be approached for factual information at public record as well. Because if it's a public record kept and it's factual, it can be out.
Just can't.
Well, why don't you ask Rob that question? Because I'd like everybody to hear that and we get him on the record publicly, legal advice as to what you would think.
Yeah. So one of the things that the mayor and I would like to do, if it's within the boundaries, is have a handful of sessions, maybe coffee or breakfast at one of our local establishments, or lunch at Skyline, where him and I are there. We put it out. We'll be there from 9 to 10 a.m. or noon to 1. Sit down with us if you have any questions, and we will give you facts. Is that?
I believe that is okay from past experience, and the law let me
I think you guys would just have to be really careful about how you answer some of those questions.
Or say you can't answer, that's outside of our scope, we can only do the following.
Yeah, I just want to make sure we're out there explaining what we're doing, why we're doing. We're gonna stay within the framework of law. You know, and I know, at the last meeting, and I really appreciated what was said about our transparency. We are trying our hardest to be transparent with our residents. We don't want to give them this information. We want them to have the information before they arrive here, okay? That's why on this week in the village, all the ordinances, all the resolutions, the agenda is all out there. And that's gonna continue to be out there as long as I'm mayor, because our citizens have a right to know. They have a right. They should come here. If they disagree with something we're looking at, they should come here and express that. I know there's been lots of questions over why I do that, because it does open us up for people to come in and say, we don't like that. That's a good thing. That's not a bad thing. That's a good thing. Aaron, you sat through many a council meeting. Did you really ever know what they were voting on? The answer to that is no, you didn't. Because everybody else up here knew, and so you understand, it isn't any different over in Miami Township, or in Addison, or in North Bend, okay? Everybody knows on council what they're talking about. The citizens don't know what you're talking about. You gotta talk about it openly. That's what we're trying to do here in Cleves, Ohio. Any other questions?
Are you ready for a motion to adjourn?
I am.
I make that motion.
Motion to adjourn by Mrs. Bolton. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Angeline. Any further discussion? Please hold here until we're finished. Penny last time could not even hear the roll call. Penny, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Burns,
Yes.
Miss Angeline,
Yes.
Miss Meyer, Mr. Babel,
Yay.
Miss Bolton.
Motion passes 5-0. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, everyone. We will reconvene with the